one of our whistleblower members is John Cole. This had to do with a software name which I can't recall right now, but in 2001, he was the head of the certain counterintelligence unit in the FBI. They were, Trilogy, the software. And this was the beginning of the, this implementation stage for this 5 years project, Trilogy software for the FBI, that they have put $700 million budget to get that was going to make the FBI in possession of one of the greatest and the best software. Well, within a year or so, he witnessed what was going on inside, and he went to Congress and said, this is not going to work, and here are all the stuff, and the people, the contractors who got this, they got it through these, cronyism and nepotism, and here are all the stuff that is wrong, and so far we have spent $50 million, this is not going to work. He supplied this congressional offices like hundreds of pages of documentations, right? Nobody did anything. Meanwhile, every year, Mueller went to Congress and said, Trilogy software is coming along great. It's fantastic. We are getting there. We're going to have the greatest and the best software in place. In 2006, we saw this headline saying they had to throw out the entire software, Trilogy, and $700 million of taxpayers' money was wasted. And start all over again with another company. Well, this issue was raised when we were down with our taxpayers' money, $50 million. $650 million of taxpayers' money in some case could have been saved. So this is just one tiny little example. And also the discouraging influence that it has, because when other people in possession of this type of information, they see that, well, the ones who do disclose go to Congress or media, nothing happens. And the public, they're not really considering it their duty to support these whistleblowers and these issues. Well, maybe I should just shut my mouth up and not do anything about it. And maybe it's not a right thing because nobody cares in the end anyway. And I wouldn't be able to blame those people, because a lot of people, they find themselves in that position in the end. They're like 10 years of fight or 5 years of fight, all this money with the attorneys, all this marriages that have been broken because of, and a lot of them go through that because of the stress, because people have put 20 years and they're, or maybe a few years away from retirement, losing everything. And in the end, all they expected was people being held accountable and that some good will come out of their whistleblowing. Well, not only that, nothing good comes out of their whistleblowing. They get punished. And then in the end, they feel or they see that no one cares. And again, media is the number one reason for that. Before any of these branches, I would hold media responsible for this.
That's right, and that's an extremely important point that I'd like the listeners and viewers out there to think about, because without the actions of whistleblowers like yourself, so much of the information that we have discovered about the criminal actions of people in government and sensitive agencies would not have come out. And this is not a peripheral issue by any means. This is something that's fundamental to the functioning of our democracy, and something that we all need to be involved in whatever way we can, and supporting courageous whistleblowers like yourself who do come forward with their stories. So I realize that a lot of this conversation has been quite negative, but that's only because we face a very bleak and stark reality of just a climate that is in every way stacked against people who are threatening the establishment. But I guess trying to wrap this up on a positive note, in an ideal world, what kind of system would you like to see in place for the protection of whistleblowers?
Well, our founding fathers, they put, our Constitution in place, and that should just suffice. When you're looking at the First Amendment, right? And then when you look at our system that was set up, it hasn't been working. That system has collapsed. It has just not been working for a while, for a long time, of the separation of powers. This is exactly what they envisioned. Okay, people, even within some of these whistleblowers organizations, they keep talking about classified whistleblowing to Congress. That to me, I consider that really not constitutional. We have representatives there who represent the Americans and their best interests, okay? And they have been put in that office. And to say you can only disclose it to a certain office who has been granted clearance, and guess who grants the clearance? It's the executive branch to a congressional office. Tells you that they have already gotten rid of the separation of power. You know, we were saying, well, with the CIA detention or this torture case, we select only 6 or 7, senators and with clearance, and we choose to form them. Well, that's one of the main problems we have been facing today. So for then whistleblower organizations, for some of the so-called whistleblowers organizations to come and say, well, at least let whistleblowers come and engage in classified disclosure. I tell those people that's making it worse because our Constitution has guaranteed those rights. And take those as your guidance, because usually those who are involved in making this package of legislations happen to be most of them the attorneys. And they bury a lot of stuff and notes. And how many whistleblowers, no matter how educated, can sit down and actually go through hundreds of pages to even understand this legislation? If you were to go and ask anyone, they would be pretty much aware of their First Amendments on their Constitution, and I believe that protection has been granted to us, and we have those. And we really don't need legislation. We just need a Congress and representatives who are doing just that, representing the people. And if we have that, and if we go by our Constitution, we don't need all this extra legislation, because in the long run, actually, these legislations, they make worse. And that's our stand. And again, I know it doesn't sound as academic, it doesn't sound as sophisticated as many legal scholars will put it, but that's based on experience, based on my experience, based on experiences of more than 100 whistleblowers we have seen. And in the end, I always say, I go by my constitutional rights. And I really take First Amendment seriously.
As we all should, because it's such an important issue. Well, if people want to support what you're doing with the National Security Whistleblower Center and also what you're doing on boilingfrogspost.com, what's the best way for people to do that?
With boilingfrogspost.com, what we do is basically myself, and I try to do as much as I can with research, writing articles on these issues, editorials, but I also, we have put together a good team of reporters, and these are some of the veteran reporters who have gotten disgusted with the mainstream, and even some of the more successful so-called alternatives who want to do these reporting, who want to go after these stories and keep pounding and bringing the attention to it. For that, we need the public support, because I decided to go with Boiling Frogs Post as an entity that is not supported by any foundations, because usually foundations, they carry their own set of objectives and goals that sometimes may not be in line with what we want to do. It's pretty bold and simple, or any corporate interest. So the only support that we have is from people, from the readership, to say, through the radio interview, through these articles, I want these people to put this information out. In order to put the information out, they need my support as reader, and their support and donations. And by putting in the work, because with the internet today, we do have that opportunity for sending the links and sending these articles, like the State Secrets Privilege editorial piece that you mentioned. Many people don't get to even read anything on a State Secrets Privilege. So that helps with raising awareness.
Well, it certainly does, and once again, I'd just like everyone out there to realize just how important this is to the proper functioning of our democracy, and just what a terrible state of affairs we find ourselves in at the moment, and how important it is to get this information out to everyone. So I'd really like to thank you on behalf of all of my listeners for having the courage to step forward with the story and to pursue this over the many years that you have pursued this incredibly important issue. And I just want to thank you for having done that.
And I want to thank you for covering this very important issue, as many people do. And thank you on behalf of all our whistleblowers.
All right. Well, Ms. Edmonds, thank you for joining me today on the Corbett Report, and best of luck in all of your future endeavors.